Valentine's Day. I've missed seeing you today, and hopefully we can get together on Wednesday for Ash Wednesday service. But I'll keep you posted about that. We'll see what the weather does between now and then. But hope you're all safe at home, enjoying a warm Sunday inside your house, enjoying Valentine's Day. The passage today we're going to use is from Luke chapter 9. About 8 days after Jesus said this, he took Peter, John, and James with him and went up to a mountain to pray. As he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. Two men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in glorious splendor, talking with Jesus. They spoke about his departure, which he was about to bring to fulfillment at Jerusalem. Peter and his companions were very sleepy, but when they became fully awake, they saw his glory and the two men standing with him. As the men were leaving Jesus, Peter said to him, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what he was saying. While he was speaking, a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. A voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my son, whom I have chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, they found that Jesus was alone. The disciples kept this to themselves and told no one at that time what they had seen. This time of year, there seems to be a lot of anniversaries because of Valentine's Day. When a couple is dating, they're on their best behavior. It brings about the question, is this person the real person, or are they putting on an act? What are they really like? As time goes by, they loosen up and become more like who they are, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's not. The same might be the same way. It might be the same way right after they get married. There's a honeymoon period, but will things change later? There's a saying that when a couple gets married, the woman hopes the man will change, and the man hopes the woman won't change. Sometimes they're both disappointed because he doesn't and she does. The passage starts out saying, 8 days after Jesus said this. After Jesus said what? Jesus had asked the disciples, "Who do the people say that I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, or one of the prophets." Then Jesus says, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter states, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus tells him that flesh and blood did not reveal this, but his Father in heaven. That is what Jesus said 8 days earlier. Why did Jesus wait 8 days to take them up on the mountain after this event? We really don't know. But maybe it was so they could come to grips with this knowledge and formulate it in their mind. They didn't know what was coming next, but Jesus did, and maybe it would have been too soon for this all to sink in at one time. When we are young, the preteen years, boys don't really want much to do with girls, and girls for sure don't want anything to do with boys. To girls, boys are dirty and smelly and gross. Boys think girls are too, but I don't know. They just aren't interested in them. Then come the teenage years and everything changes. Then all of a sudden they notice each other, but they still don't know what to do about it. It is kind of an awkward time for both of them. They're interested in one another, but they just don't know what to do about it. Eventually they do get together, and they might even find that one special someone that they're in love with. When we first fall in love, it's a special time, and everything seems wonderful. We want to spend all of our time with that one person and share everything together. We hope that the feelings we have will never go away and that we can be in love like this forever and ever. And it's pretty cool. Of course, this is romantic love. The Greek word for this is eros. It is a love of attraction for one another based on how someone looks, acts, and makes us feel. It is an important part of a relationship, but the whole relationship has to be based on something more than just feelings. Today we will look at an important aspect in the life of Jesus, the Transfiguration. This is when Jesus took the disciples up on the mountain and was transfigured before them. his face and clothes shining bright, and the cloud coming with the voice of God saying, "This is my son whom I have chosen, listen to him." When we are in love with someone, especially when it is new, everything is different. Life changes for us. Things seem to revolve around the other person and how we can spend time together and do things together, and we want to please the other person. But there is also something in how we feel that maybe can't be explained. We are happy and joyful and maybe feel like we are floating on air because we are in love. We don't ever want that feeling to go away, but in time it does change. You still love the other person, but it isn't exactly the same as it was when it first happened. In today's passage about the Transfiguration, the disciples have a wonderful experience of seeing Jesus' face and clothes change before them. They see Moses and Elijah. Quite a thing to see, I would think. Peter says, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Peter wants the experience to last. He wants to build some little houses and stay there for a while. After all, this is probably the greatest experience he has ever experienced his whole life. A greater experience is in store for him in the not too distant future, the resurrection, but he doesn't know that. When we realize that we are in love with someone, there is at first an attraction and then an infatuation and then a realization that we love that person. It usually happens while we're dating. Eventually we want to always be with the other person, and you often feel lonely without them around. This oftentimes leads to marriage and then the honeymoon period. Sometimes it will last for a month or two, sometimes it will last a year, but eventually the honeymoon period wears off. To keep the relationship going, there are things both partners need to work on to make it successful. Some make it, some don't. We are told that about half all marriages end in divorce. Unfortunately, even among Christians, this isn't much better. For a lot of us, when we first experience the presence of God in our lives, it is a wonderful thing, kind of like falling in love. The knowledge that God loves us and cares for us and is involved in our lives is great. We feel like our life has purpose and meaning, and we want to please Him in what we do. We don't want that feeling to go away. We call this a mountaintop experience, but a lot of times those feelings don't last. Does it mean that God isn't with us? No. It just is that life isn't lived on the mountaintop. It's like our relationship with someone that we love. It can't be all based on feelings. In marriage, one stays married because of commitment and wanting that lifestyle after the strong feelings go away. Love is still there, but the feelings just aren't as strong. In faith, one keeps the faith because of the facts about Christianity. There is still the feeling of love for God, but when life gets tough as a Christian, the facts help keep one's faith going. As we look at this scene with Jesus on the mountain, he changes. The appearance of his face changed, and his clothes become as bright as flash of lightning. Is this Jesus' true appearance? I think so. We are told in John chapter 1 verses 2 and 3. Dear friends, now we are children of God, and what we will be has not yet been made known. But we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Everyone who has this hope in him purifies himself, just as he is pure. After the honeymoon period is over, we kind of start to see the other person in a different way. We start seeing some of their faults that didn't bother us before. They also see us that way too. It's a two-way street. We might say we see each other the way we really are. Now, this can be a good thing too. The disciples saw Jesus in his true form, and it was wonderful and pretty amazing. Sometimes a couple will come to a counselor if they're having problems. The counselor can listen and make suggestions, but that's about all. But something counselors say to them is that when they fell in love, they were dating. One suggestion is that they start dating again. They need to bring back that spark in the relationship that caused them to fall in love in the first place. Sometimes, as a couple gets older and the kids come along, they get busy with the activities, with making a living, and doing what needs to be done. Then after the kids are gone, they step back and look at each other, and they forget why they got together in the first place. The old spark isn't there anymore. Sometimes it is at this time that a lot of couples break up. I fully realize there's a lot of reasons couples split up, but sometimes it is because they drifted apart while the kids were growing up. To get things back again, maybe they need to do what they did when they were young. Go out on dates, spend time together, do little things for one another. Go on a trip together or find activities they enjoy doing together. It takes a little work, but it can be very rewarding if they do. But it takes both of them working together to make it work. The suggestions I'm making in this sermon only apply to those couples that feel like they drifted apart. I know that relationships are very complicated. I've learned over the years that there's a lot of reasons for divorce, and there's absolutely no reason to be judgmental about divorce. Only those very close to the couple usually know the real reasons for the divorce, and even they might not really know. It is a very personal thing that no one can judge. My own dad was married 4 times and divorced twice. No one would have predicted that when he had been married for 20 years to my mother and was active in the Catholic Church. A week after their 25th anniversary, she was killed in a car wreck. So life happens and one cannot judge. There are often more serious reasons for divorce than just drifting apart, but there are things that can be done if a couple feels like they are drifting apart. But stepping back with our relationship with God, we may come to times that we don't feel as close to God. If we feel like we are not as close to God as we once were, maybe we should do the things that helped us to be close to God in the first place. Pray, read the Bible, be alone with God in the country, talk to someone about God, maybe read a book or two about Christian living or get into a small group or Bible study. Go and visit one of God's great wonders, the mountains, the ocean, the Flint Hills, whatever brings you closer to God. We all know people that used to be really involved in the church and seem to really care about spiritual things. They kind of drifted away and haven't been involved like they used to be. Did they break up with God? Did they fall out of love with God? It is interesting how this is put in Revelation chapter 2, where Jesus is speaking to the early churches. You have forsaken the love you had at first. Consider how far you have fallen. Repent and do the things you did at first. Are we always going to feel mushy-gushy love for our significant other? Probably not. There may even be times when we really don't like them very much, but we still love them. If you have ever read the Psalms very much, you find there were times when the psalm writer, often David, didn't feel close to God at different times. One of them says, my God, why have you forsaken me? There are going to be times when we don't feel close to God, but he is still there. Of course, there is a difference between romantic love and unconditional love. Romantic love is based on feelings and attraction. Unconditional love is based on nothing other than the fact that we love the other person. We love them not because of how they look or how they act or how they make us feel. We love them in spite of the way they look or act or make us feel. That is the kind of love God has for us, unconditional love. It's called agape. It is also the kind of love we are to have for one another. It's not possible for us to have that kind of love without God's help.